right. Welcome back. I don't need to come up with a name for the show, for the intro, but uh, I'll work on that later. So joining me today is Mike Kingston is returning. For those who haven't seen my other interviews with or read my other interviews with him, he is a local creator here in the capital region of New York, and he does a wrestling magazine called Headlocked, or sorry, comic of Headlocked, and he's running another Kickstarter for Tales from the Road Volume 2. So let's go ahead and bring him in to find out what he's been up to and find out about his project. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
How's everything?
I think last time we talked, it was sometime last year during when everything was kind of still shut down and up in the air.
Yeah, it's been nice to see things open up a little bit. Obviously, for me, as an independent creator, shows are such a big part of our deal. So having the access to do shows again and just sort of getting out in front of people has been really nice and somewhat invigorating. Just as a creator, to sort of be out amongst creative people.
I can imagine. And you were recently at New York Comic Con. How was that? Unfortunately, I couldn't go because my 5-year-old still hasn't qualified for the vaccination. So I'm not going to expand our bubble that far until,
Yeah, no, and that's obviously a heck of a bubble to expand. No, New York was great. It was a little different. Just the traffic patterns were a little different. The layout was a little different. There were some different vendors. For me and my particular operation, just having a bunch of wrestlers to do autographs and having helpers and volunteers and stuff, like the COVID protocols made it a lot trickier. But once we got everybody through the door and we got everybody through the protocols, like it was really good. I mean, it felt like the way it was, and albeit a smaller scale, but it was good. And I think that we have one of the only wrestling booths at the show, so people were excited to have us back. We had a really good guest list. We had Jerry Lawler, Rob Van Dam, Jake Roberts, Jim Ross, and Katie Forbes, and then we had Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, and Mark Sterling for a limited signing. So I feel like we had a really good guest list. We made some really cool exclusives, and people seemed to be happy. They seemed to be really happy that we were back, and I was really happy to be back. So
I can imagine it. It hurt. It really hurt to be sitting up here in Albany watching everybody have fun, but it still was a little nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, I will say that. I mean, I thought ReedPop did a really good job of making sure that it was as safe as you could, for an event that size, that it was as safe as you could schedule it. I mean, I know that there are certain people that I know have done other events that I think, I don't necessarily know what vaccination was required, or actually, no, I mean, I know there were definitely some wrestlers that have done vaccination required events that couldn't do the ReedPop show because there was no real way to BS their way through the protocols. So, I mean, I think on that end, I think that they did a real good job. I felt safe there, I guess. So I know they threw some vendors out that weren't complying with a mask mandate. And, I thought they did as good as you could really expect.
And that's what I heard. I talked to some other friends who were there, one creator and one local person who works at the Schenectady Library, and was down there getting ideas for the Electric City Comic Con. And they said, they were pretty well pleased with the way things were run and handled. And so it's glad to hear that from you also.
Yeah, they did good. I mean, it was a pain, but it was necessary. And, I mean, if that's what we got to do to get shows back, I'm, whatever.
Yeah. So moving on. So let's talk about your new your latest Kickstarter that you're currently running, Tales from the Road Volume 2. Um, I guess kind of explain what it is. Tell us about, well, when did you do Volume 1? Was that a
last
while
year.
ago? Last year? Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, that
Time
was the
has no
last
meaning
Kickstarter we
anymore.
ran, actually. So one of the things that I've, I started obviously making Headlocked. I have a Headlocked series, which is a story about a kid, a theater major, sort of chasing his dream to become a professional wrestler, navigating the underbelly of the business. And throughout that, like, I've made a lot of connections with wrestlers. A lot of wrestlers like my book, fans of it, which whatever. And then through that, we were able to start collaborating on short stories together. So we Tales from the Road was sort of born out of that. Guys wanting to do stuff and me wanting to do stuff with guys and whatever. And it's so it's basically an anthology of short stories that I've co-created with various wrestlers, and it's a lot of fun. We it's fictional, but it's all different all different genres, all different stories. Some of them are adapted from real life. Some of them are just out there, and it's cool. I'm real happy with it. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a real easy entry point. I mean, you can pick up this book without
So
having
this,
read anything else we've ever done. And
who's joining you this time on the project?
so we have AJ Styles and John Morrison as far as current WWE talents. Current AEW talents, we have Thunder Rosa, Pentagon, Frankie Kazarian, and then we had Matt Cardona and Brian Myers doing a short story. They have a very popular action figure podcast, and they were also the former WWE Tag Team Champions. Then we had Crime Time, which was unfortunately, I mean, sadly, it was the last thing that Shad Gaspard did before he died. He died last year, saving his son from a riptide when they'd just opened the beaches in Los Angeles, and he was a really good dude. Was a real good friend of mine, and he had been a supporter really of Headlock since day one. And I was excited that we were able to do something together. And like, I got the edits for the book, I think, for the story, but I think 3 days before he passed. And that was a real tough one. But I was really glad that we were able to do something. And then we have a couple of hot independent talents, Effie, Frankie Kazarian, or I'm sorry, not Frankie Kazarian, Danny Limelight, and Danhausen, who's just kind of taken the world by storm with his sort of kooky character that he is. And then we have Jeff Cobb, who had done a story with a few years back. That's one of my favorites, who is a staple of New Japan Wrestling. So, and then last but not least, I think my favorite story in the collection is a story that we've done with Rob Van Dam. Rob is a very noted user of marijuana, and we came up with a Reefer Madness inspired story that's it doesn't really go the way you'd think it would, but it's a lot of fun. It's told in that sort of propaganda style of the '60s, and I think people are really going to dig it.
So, what are you offering for people who back the project?
We have all kinds of cool perks. I mean, so we have 3 different covers. We have our traditional Norman Rockwell style homage from Jerry the King Lawler. We have a Grand Budapest Hotel cover homage by Mikhail Molapola that you can actually be drawn into, although I think all those tiers are gone now. And then we have a Kickstarter exclusive. It's only available through the campaign cover of Danhausen by Brian Silverbacks, which is really it's a Creepshow inspired, and I think people really are going to like it. That's Jerry's cover right there. Sort of a riff on the the famous post cover with the sailor having his ex-girlfriends crossed off his arms when we're just having the guy tattooed different names of the contributors on the guy's arm. And if you scroll up a little bit, I think you see the other two right underneath it. But they're a lot of fun. So you can get one of three. I'm sorry, the other way. I meant scroll down, but I think I said scroll. There you go. So that's the Danhausen cover right there. It's inspired by the first Creepshow movie poster, and then the one above that is Mikkel's the Grand Budapest Hotel cover. So we have tiers where you can be drawn into the empty key tags, but I think they are all gone. We draw you in as a wrestler or a character in the universe. And then so you can get one cover, you can get all three covers, but the Danhausen cover is only available during the Kickstarter. There's not it won't be available at cons, it won't be available online. So, but yeah, we've got a whole bunch of really cool stories, and they're all different. Like I said, they're all different genres, and they're a lot of fun. Effie's story is our first silent story, which I think is pretty cool. We've never done that before, and it's actually the first Headlock story that I haven't had a hand in creating outside of like editing. But there's a story with Danhausen and my friend Lan Pitts, who he's written for the WWE comic. He wrote for he does a comic called Beast Heart Strikers. That is I guess a backup feature now in Image, I think in Radiant Black maybe.
Okay.
He does really. One of the things I guess I've decided, I never really intended to be a publisher, you know what I mean? Like I just wanted to make comics, I guess, and it's just the nature of the comic book business and people and the expense of making comics or whatever has sort of, I don't know, made me sort of back into being a publisher. And the last year and a half was really difficult for me sort of mentally. Just having worked so hard, and then I had a lot of things fall through, jobs and gigs that I had that I was really excited about. So one of the things I sort of made the decision to do, like if I was going to like sort of continue to exist in this world as it is now, was to try to do more to sort of promote my friends and people that have been good to me, people who I think should get a little spotlight on them. And it's hard as a writer. There's, you know what I mean? Like it's very, very hard as a writer to break in without doing your own stuff. So as I move forward with Tales from the Road, I'm probably going to open up 2 to 3 slots in every book where I give my friends, just different creators, a crack at playing in the sandbox and telling the stories they want to tell. I may pair some of them up with wrestlers. I may just let some of them just do their thing. But I guess I want to try to do more with what we've built to help some people along. Like I don't want to get like 1,000 submissions because that's not something I want to do. I just want to kind of invitation only for people that have been there. I mean, I probably made no secret about how difficult the last 10 years have been to get myself where I'm at. I mean, we're still, beating the Kickstarter drum and whatever, and just it's difficult, and it's always been difficult, and it's probably always going to be difficult, and it's cool because I love it and it's fine. You know what I mean? Like as long as I can keep making comics, that's all I really want. But I'm gonna, I want to try to, invite people that have, people who I know, who I respect, and people that have kind of, been OGs since the beginning. So I think that's my plan, to try to just get some people some exposure in my for what little platform I have, and make comics with my friends, which is really all I want to do. You know what I mean? Is just
I know, yeah,
to make comics with my friends.
Well, I know that I've definitely seen you, grow as a creator over the years that I've known you, and I remember how we met is I was at the Boston Comic Con one year, and I was tweeting out, and you were like, "You didn't come and see me." I was like, "I didn't know you were from the area, and that you were
Actually, I think it was
there."
Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, maybe it was Baltimore.
I think it
Yeah.
was Baltimore. It's
So,
tricky. I mean, it's weird for me, like, because I feel like I've done a lot of cool things. I think you know, I've made a lot of cool books, stories, whatever. Like, I published my Tales from the Road through Wrestle Crate, Pro Wrestling Crate, which has like a 5,000 unit circulation on top of what we do at shows and stuff. Like, I think I probably move a lot more units than a lot of publishers that get more press than I do. But like, I don't use Diamond, and I just kind of exist outside of comic books, and it's it's a weird thing because I mean, comics is such a, I don't know, what gets covered in comics is a very narrow slice of what comics is. I mean, at the end of the day, right? It's just words and pictures, and like there's always been, I think, a little bit of gatekeeping with comics, and you know what I mean. I think web comics creators would tell you that, or digital comics or whatever, and so I just want to, so it's always been sort of tricky for me to sort of exist in that world, but one of the other things I've been trying to do as part of my sort of, I guess, I don't want to say mission to give back or whatever, but just, I don't know. I feel like it's just something I need to do. But like, I've been doing panels at shows about breaking into comics, or about creating your own comics, not breaking into comics, because obviously I haven't broken into comics in 10 years. I mean, I wrote some stuff for Boom and whatever, and I've had some stuff go, get places, but not all the way. And whatever, but you know what I mean? Just about making your own comics. Because people come up to me all the time and they say, I have an idea for a comic, or I had an idea for a comic, and it was just like, just like The Walking Dead or whatever. And listen, I like Walking Dead. I have all the books, got all the trades, but it ain't Shakespeare. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very good comic, but you know what I mean? Like, people can do that. I mean, I'm a biochemistry major who has managed truck drivers and warehouses my whole life. I taught myself how to make comics. Like, anybody can do it. So I try to empower people to make their own comics, and just give them the tools to try to know what their options are and what the paths are, and not be sort of narrowed down to, like, if you don't write Spider-Man, you're not a comic book writer or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, just trying to make it, I don't know, trying to inspire the next generation of creators, or to sort of stand on my shoulders and not make all the mistakes I made, or not wait for things that I was waiting for that were never going to happen. So
right. I just want to say I always enjoy seeing the Norman Rockwell style covers that Jerry does, and first off, I love Norman Rockwell, but then it's also great to see those, I guess, classic paintings kind of homaged in the way that you guys are doing it.
I mean, when I started doing Headlocked, one of my sort of missions was to sort of get people to understand that wrestling is an art form, and I think over the last 10 years, I think people are a little more comfortable with that. But I think one of the, that was always kind of a theme. So having wrestlers as artists on the book, Mikkel is a wrestler from New Zealand who does the interiors to the Headlock series, and then Doug, who does a good chunk of my Tales from the Road stories, is actually a trained wrestler as well. I mean, he had a much smaller sort of time as a wrestler, but I don't know. I like using wrestlers as artists. I think that's, and I like, sort of doing these sort of fine art spins or adapting wrestling into pop culture stuff, just because for the longest time, I mean, wrestling was a redheaded stepchild. I was the first wrestling thing at a ton of conventions that had like wrestling bans, or they would openly brag about how they didn't allow wrestlers and whatever. And it's different now, but I mean, we opened the door at well over a dozen shows, where I would, be like, well, I write this comic book about wrestling. Is it cool if I come? And they'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely. We love comics. And I'm like, all right, well, can I bring Jerry? And they'd be like, well, we don't let wrestlers come. And I'd be like, oh, okay, well, he's an artist. He does the covers. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to bring him, but we're not going to advertise him as a wrestler. We're just going to advertise him as an artist. And then like, you'd see like Jerry, like you'd be looking at your Artist Alley pictures and it's just all the weird headshots of bald dudes with glasses and goatees or whatever, and then there's a Jerry with a crown and
Right.
whatever. You're like, what the hell, and whatever. When we'd show up for the show, we'd blow the doors off the place, and then lo and behold, next year they'd have wrestling at the show. So it's interesting. So I mean, to me, like, sort of, it's always been important to sort of anchor wrestling within like different art forms, and that's partially what we do at Tales from the Road. There's all these different sorts of genres that we play in and adapt wrestling to, and it's I think it's fun, and it really makes me happy.
So as one of the hardest people and working people in comics that I know of, what shows do you have coming up?
So this has been a tough year just because they've backloaded so many big shows. So I'm actually going to be at the Washington Avenue Armory on Saturday at a wrestling signing called Showcase of Legends with Jerry, and Ric Flair is there, and Trish Stratus. So I'm doing that on Saturday, I think from 11 to 3. So if anybody's around, come get some books, come meet some famous people. It's going to be fun. And then I've got a couple of weeks off to sort of drive the Kickstarter and to hopefully get that done. And then I've got 3 huge shows right in a row, which is going to be rough. I got San Diego Comic-Con on Thanksgiving weekend, which I'm excited about just because I love San Diego and I love San Diego Comic-Con, and I haven't been there in 2 years now, and I miss it desperately. So I'm leaving from San Diego and going directly to Seattle, which Emerald City is there, and then I fly home. I work for a couple days, and then I have to go to Chicago for C2E2. But I've got 3 panels in San Diego. There's a wrestling and comics panel. I'm on a getting media thing, which is sort of like non-traditional, like getting non-traditional press. And then I'm doing my Breaking Into Comics panel in San Diego. I'm doing my Breaking Into Comics and a wrestling comics panel in Emerald City, and then we're just scheduled for the wrestling and comics panel in Chicago, but it's actually pretty star-studded, so that's going to be a good one. So yeah, that's my show schedule for now. I might pick up a wrestling show here and there. I definitely miss attending live shows. So,
and I definitely miss the food porn, but.
It was tough in New York this year. I mean, New York was so hard for me. My banner, UPS lost my custom banner for the show, so I had to wait and leave later the next day, and then they never found my banner. My banner has still never shown up. So I'm driving to Manhattan, trying to, call around and find a printer that will, turn something on a day for me, and then get to the show, I start setting up. And the Javits Center is a tough show to set up for anyway, just because you got to throw everything out on the sidewalk and kind of wheel it in. I get there, I set up my banner stand to hang my newly printed banner, and the banner stand is broken. Somehow sitting in its case untouched for 2 years, it broke. So I had to tape the hell out of it and pray that it didn't fall on Rob Van Dam. And it didn't, thankfully.
Well, isn't he used to getting hit with stuff anyway?
Yeah, so, but it was wild. Like it was a tough show. So I was exhausted like the whole time, and I had done a show in Maine the weekend before that was in makeup from the previous year. So and then still worked my full-time job. So like I was exhausted, and then all the places that I normally go around the Javits Center were gone. Like they were either closed temporarily or relocated somewhere else, and like so. One night, just went back to my hotel and I sat down for a second and just fell right dead asleep. One night literally got DoorDash, just because I couldn't fathom going out again. One of the other things I was not prepared for is that I didn't have a fresh pair of sneakers. I did a lot of walking during the pandemic, and one of the sort of crazier things I did was I walked 100,000 steps in one day, and it was like 41 miles. But I still have the same sneakers, so they did not really afford me a fair amount of protection from doing a 4-day show on concrete. So by the end of every day at New York Comic Con, I was whooped. Thankfully, I always pack a lacrosse ball, and I use it to like roll against my
Mm-hmm.
soreness. Usually it's for my back and my neck, but I need it for my feet this time. So, my food pictures were definitely downscaled a little bit. But San Diego should be good, and Seattle's always great. So we should be coming back hard with the food porn.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention about the Kickstarter before we kind of give you a chance to, you know, give a last sales pitch, or where people can locate you?
No, I think it's a real good book, and I think it's fun. I think it's easy. And I think if you like wrestling, honestly, I feel like it's really something for everybody in this thing. I think that if you like wrestling, you're gonna love it. But even if you don't really care about wrestling, it's not that anybody can pick this up and read it. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the best compliments I get is when people say I don't like wrestling or I don't watch wrestling, but I like your stuff. Because I do try to write it for people that are, not fans, but still try to make it interesting for fans. It's a line to walk for sure. Making it interesting enough for hardcores, but accessible enough for newbies. But I don't ever want anybody to feel like they couldn't pick up a book and follow it or figure out how it goes. So, it's a fun book with a lot of themes that I think people can relate to and some fun stories. Cardona and Meyer story is basically Toy Story with wrestling action figures. Thunder Rosa's story is a very empowering story for women. Danhausen's story is sort of a riff on a Simpsons bit that is super fun. Like I mentioned, Rob's story. There's a lot of good stories. I think people will dig them.
All right. Well, as we sit here and looks like you're almost to to your goal. Do you have any plans for stretch goals, which I'm sure you're going to knock out of the park?
Yeah, we're gonna see how it goes. I'd like to be able to. I don't know. One of the things that I've noticed that's more of a trend is people using their stretch goals to pay their creative teams a little bit more, and I think something I'd like to be able to get into. None of us are getting rich here. I'm not going to make a dime off of this Kickstarter. So all that money is going to go to artists. It's going to go to printers. I just put it back into the machine. I got a full-time job. I've got so many projects I want to work on, so many stories I want to work on. And anything we have extra is just going to go into more stuff. So, there can never be enough. We can never make enough money. But for me, it's really not about the money. I just want people to read. Like, we put our hearts and our souls into this book, into everything we do. I've turned down famous wrestlers that I don't have, that want to do stories that we, I think, if we don't have the right connection or just, no chemistry, or I think that they're just there to promote themselves or whatever. Like that stuff, all of that stuff matters to me. It matters the guests that I have at my booth. I turned down an extremely famous wrestler one time that somebody was going to bring because they wanted so much money that it wasn't going to provide for a good fan experience,
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I always tell people, if I'm going to kill myself to do stuff, I want to make the stuff that I want to make, and I want to make it, I want to make, good stuff, I guess.
No,
so,
I understand.
I think that's always been important to me, and I think it comes through in everything that we do. We do a lot of like comic book homage prints for T-shirts and for art prints and stuff, and like I see a lot of people do that, and they don't think about it. Like, if you're a skinny dude, like, you shouldn't be on a Hulk shirt. You know what I mean? Like, unless it's ironically, but like sometimes people will just like sort of project themselves onto some shirt, but that doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I spend an ungodly amount of time thinking about which covers I'm going to use for which wrestlers, and when we're doing shirt designs and stuff, and like, I don't know, it all matters to me. I take everything very seriously. but it's all done. Everything we do comes from a place of love, and so I just want people to. I want people to read it. The more people that read it, the more stuff we can make. I've got so much cool stuff in my head that I'm dying to get out. So, check it out, give it a look. You can get a digital book for $15. It's 120 pages. And like I said, we got three covers. We've got a ton of signed stuff. We got shirts, prints, all kinds of cool memorabilia. Signed prints by the Undertaker. There's lots of cool stuff in there. So, a lot of our bigger tiers are gone, but you can still get some really, really cool stuff.
And where can people find you on social media?
Everything is Headlocked Comic. It's one word. It's all me. It's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I'm definitely too old for TikTok. I don't know.
Same,
I mean, maybe someday I'll get into it, but I mean, like, I don't dance, so I'm not sure if I'm be the best practitioner for that platform. But who knows? I mean, but yeah, it's all me. So if you got questions about what we do, if you got questions about breaking into comics, if you need some advice, a direction to be pointed in terms of how to get your stuff made, I'm always available for that kind of stuff too. Like I said, I really want to get people excited to make comics and to make their stuff and bring their stuff to the world, because it's been like sort of the best part of my life. You know what I mean? I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm not a young guy anymore, but like the last 10 years have been definitely the most rewarding of my life. So, I want people, if they want that experience, and they want to work for it, I definitely want to give them the tools, or at least point them in a workable direction. So feel free to hit me up.
Well, it's great talking to you again. Maybe I'll see you in person sometime soon.
I have a hug. I have a crisp high five, whichever you prefer. But I am vaccinated. I will have a mask, whatever. But yeah, it's been the best part about everything, is just reconnecting with my friends and my creative friends, and just my real life. I manage truck drivers and warehouses and stuff, and it's just a different thing. And I mean, I like all those people, obviously, but there's a part of my soul that's creative that just wasn't touched. And it makes me real happy to be able to sort of reconnect with all my friends.
Well, again, thank you for taking the time out today to chat. Always great to catch up with you, and best of luck on a successful Kickstarter. I know it's going to come through, because you put out great stuff.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I just want to keep making it better. You know what I mean? Like, I just want it to be better than the last one. I want it to get a little bit bigger. I mean, I see the success that some people have with Kickstarter, Brian Polito and Jimmy Palmiotti, and I just like I like to be able to get to a point where it's not as hard. I guess
Right.
is all I really want, is to be able to know comfortably I can get stuff made. I don't have to bang the drum as hard, because then I can just keep making stuff. Like I said, man, we got some cool stuff that's locked in my head that I can't wait to get out. So,
Well, I will let you go, because I know you're, as I said, one of the busiest persons, not only with your real life job, but also in comics. So
I have an interview at 2, I have an interview at 3, and then I leave for work at 4, and I got a 14-hour shift ahead of me. So,
all right. Well, I'll let you go, and you can have a little bit of downtime before you got to do your next thing.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate it, man. It was really good to catch up.
Yep. All right. And you're always welcome back. If you ever want to talk, comics, or have another Kickstarter or anything.
Sure. Yeah. No, it'd be cool. It'd probably be cool sometime to just not have to promote and just come on and shoot the breeze.
Yeah. Maybe we'll find I don't know, find a topic or something that we can work on.
Maybe we could get just a bunch of local creators together, do a little comics roundtable or something. That'd probably be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll work on setting that up. So, all right. Well, like I said, I'm going to let you go. I got to get back to doing what I was doing. And so, again, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Great to see you, bud. Take care. Bye-bye.